Yo, what's up guys, and welcome back to a new video. Today we are going to briefly talk about some of the changes that we have seen for Fury Warrior as we are approaching that first week of heroic and normal raiding and to get started with our M0s. And there has been a little bit of a development when it comes to both our raid talents and our M plus talents that I wanted to make you guys aware of so that you have everything you need to do the most DPS whenever you set foot in either it being raid or the dungeons. So I wanted to first of all start off with some of the changes that we have seen to the single target build. And there hasn't been a whole lot of change, but it do be noticeable. We have, instead of talenting into Onslaught and Tenderize, opted in for sudden death, and we have taken 2 points in critical thinking and only 1 in depth experience. Now you might think that this is quite a minor change, but whenever we look at the sims, this actually comes around to be an 8k DPS increase, which is about a 1% increase in DPS. Now for our rotation, this means that we are going to have a lot more uptime on our Ashen Juggernaut, so we do want to be able to keep track of that Ashen Juggernaut buff if you haven't already done that, so make sure to get a tracker for it. I have one in my UI, but there is plenty of other options for you to be able to track it. Now for our Enrage, we are not able to use that Onslaught for an easy Enrage anymore, so we will need to revert back to our old opener being Recklessness Charge into a Rampage, followed up by the rest of our abilities. If you are unsure about the opener, make sure to go check out the Slayer guide that I've posted before. It has not changed very much. The only thing that has changed has been the Onslaught change. I also wanted to take this time to explain a little bit more in depth on our Slayer hero talents, on why we are taking the path that we are taking. And the most confusion exists with Culling Cyclone. The first thought that you have with Culling Cyclone is that it will increase your AOE damage because it gives your strikes on Bladestorm an additional 20% damage. However, there is a big sideline to this because it states that it's evenly split across all the targets. That means that whenever you are fighting only one target, that you will instead do 20% more damage to that target with your strikes of Bladestorm, rather than it being split evenly among the amount of targets that you fight. To give you a perspective on this, whenever you are fighting about 3 targets or more, Brutal Finish actually starts taking over because the rampage damage that we will cleave with our whirlwind stacks will be higher than the split damage that we do from our Bladestorm. And for our single target, we always opt into Opportunist because we are prioritizing Raging Blow more than we are prioritizing Bloodthirst, because our Reap the Storm procs are less valuable in single target. Now, to give you guys a little bit of a side note on this, a lot of people might not see details showing you that either Crushing Blow or Raging Blow is the highest damaging ability on your meters, but there is so many hidden auras that actually affect the damage of your other spells and abilities that it does give you the most value, even though we are getting that many buffs on our Bloodthirst. Now for the last part, we see that we are not opting in for Unbridled Ferocity anymore. And that is just simply because they have nerfed this talent so much that it is actually not worth it anymore to play it, especially with the RNG that is revolved around it and the incredibly low proc chance it has right now. It is just better to play with the other passively buffing talents, as for example the critical thinking and the depth experience, which I do think will see some tuning, because I really doubt that they will allow us to take more of these points rather than taking capstones that are supposedly the strongest that we can talent into. Talking about our M plus talents, we have also seen some changes in those. We have, instead of opting into Ashen Juggernaut, taken Rev and Fury combined with Hack and Slash, and we have taken Powerful Enrage. Now for the Powerful Enrage part, I will get if people do not play this talent but instead opt into Frenzied Enrage for a little bit of a DPS decrease. However, it plays a lot smoother. Now for Powerful Enrage, you will deal more damage in AoE scenarios because some of our abilities do not gain as much value from haste, especially in very high target count pulls. So whenever you talent into Powerful Enraged, for our potential in AoE, we still see the most in Powerful Enraged. However, if you do want to have a little bit of a better game style, having that extra haste, it is a very insignificant loss to play with Frenzied Enrage. Now lastly, moving on to why we have dropped Ashen Juggernaut. And we have just seen that in M+, it has not proven to be as worthy as we thought it would be. Now, having access to both Hack and Slash and Rev and Fury will make your rotation a lot more smooth, and we are just generally prioritizing Raging Blows and Bloodthirst over our executes, and with the inconsistencies that we have in dropping off Ashen Juggernaut, we have seen a decent increase in damage by not playing it. However, I do think on higher key levels we will see a return of Ashen Juggernaut, as it does boost up that single target priority damage a little bit more, and we do like our priority damage in higher keys. Now, that is a good bridge to jump over to our Slayer talent here, being Culling Cyclone instead of Brutal Finish. If you guys have just watched the single target part of this video, then you know that I said that whenever we exceed 3 targets, Brutal Finish is actually a DPS increase in AoE, and Culling Cyclone is a slight increase in single target. Now, I do prefer to have that little bit more single target orientated damage in my keys. However, if you want to go for the most damage, you will definitely want to talent into Brutal Finish. For M+, we can play both Opportunist and Fierce Follow Through. Whenever you play Fierce Follow Through, you would want to pay a little bit more attention to having your Blood Craze so that you can actually stack up those Fierce Follow Through procs. If you don't, you can just take Opportunist and this will proc pretty naturally, and it does about the same damage. We see a little bit more damage with Opportunist than we do with Fierce Follow Through in single target, and a little bit more AoE with Fierce Follow Through. And lastly, I have received a lot of questions whether it's better to play Anger Management or Reckless Abandon, and when you should play which. And I have a very simple answer for this question. Whenever you are starting to get onto that higher key level where you do need to have that extra priority damage, and where you are starting to get more consistent players in your keys, more consistent pulls, and you do know what to expect, I do advise you to go Reckless Abandon, as it is just a better talent build right now. Now, whenever you play Anger Management, you will have access to a little bit more AoE and flexibility. So in lower key levels where pulls just generally die a bit faster, where you do not need as much single target priority damage, or whenever you're playing with tanks that do not have set routes, then it is nice to have that extra ability from Anger Management to be able to adapt to the situation at hand. Now, I've also been asked quite a lot what I will be playing in Raid. Will it be Arms or will it be Fury, and why? Now, I will be playing Fury for the most part of it, as the sims are currently very close together. So both single target from Arms and Fury is within 30k DPS from each other. And I personally like the feel of Fury way more. And I think that the survivability aspects of it also play a very nice role into it. And besides that, I do think that it's easier to lose damage on Arms than it is on Fury whenever you're talking rotationally, so I will be playing Fury for the most of it. Now, that doesn't mean that I will not play Arms at all, I will just be prioritizing Fury. Now, I've also been asked quite frequently what people should craft and what embellishments they should use. And I have the same answer for all of you, being that I am going to personally hold off until we are actually going into Mythic Plus and Mythic Raid, because we are most likely going to see some tuning on them, and it would be very awkward to be stuck with either a weapon or a piece of gear that has no value to you. However, if the current tuning stays the same, I will probably be crafting a weapon with Dark Moon Ascension on it. And that sums up pretty much everything there was to talk about the changes for Fury Warrior for both M+ and for Raid. There has not been any changes for Mount Attain as so far. If you do have any questions, make sure to leave them in a comment down below or ask them live on Twitch. Make sure to hit that like button, and as always, see you guys in the next one.